everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, the host of the Happiness Hour, and I'm also a moderator for the Texas Women Photographers Circle. And every month, I invite a guest to share their stories behind their favorite photographs, some of their favorite tips and techniques, and to discuss some ideas that will inspire us to try something new. Tonight's guest is Brandie Koch. Brandie's favorite subject is landscape photography. Whether she's traveling in her family's RV or attending photography retreats, she's able to document her travels and pursue fine art landscape photography. In tonight's presentation, Chasing Landscapes, Brandie will inspire you to think of landscape as the whole scene, and she'll give you some tools that will help you to fully capture all the beauty in the scene beyond the main attraction. You can connect with Brandie through Instagram at bkphotography06. Brandie, welcome to the program. You don't have a website, my lady. So when my suitors don't have a website, it is so difficult for me to like stalk you and drill down and find that about page. So what did I miss? Is there something you want to share with us that I didn't mention? Any deep, dark secrets you want to confess on camera?
I wish that was that exciting. No, I think you accurately captured. I love landscape photography, and landscape to me tends to mean a lot of different things within a scene. And I like being able to capture it, and I love being able to include my children in it.
Good. All right. Well, I had asked you to send me some sample photos. And ladies, prepare yourself. I just got onto her earlier. Her Instagram does not reflect she's hiding all the good stuff on a hard drive somewhere because she doesn't have them on a website. But I was very, very impressed with your sample photos, and I was very excited that you said that you would do this. And we joke around because I do the happiness hour, and there's an ongoing joke that, don't say no to Linda when she asks you to do a presentation because, I'll go after you. And it's true. And I didn't have to like convince you. You're just like, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm really excited that you didn't put up a fight and that you're willing to share your work. So with that, I'm going to hush it and let you share your screen.
Thank you, Linda, for having me. I'm excited for this opportunity. And when Linda came for me with this presentation, I was thinking, what is my vision for this? Like, what would I want to talk about? What was I qualified to talk about? And it always came back to landscape for me. But then I felt like I'm not just a landscape photographer. I love doing macro. I love doing wildlife. I love doing environmental portraits of my kids. I like to dabble in a lot of areas. And I realized that those areas fed back into my landscape work. And so I thought that for my presentation, I would talk about how I journey into landscape, different ways that I shoot. I've always been interested in photography. As a kid, I had a film camera and I was taking pictures when I was in third grade of the Capitol Rotunda ceiling. And I've always enjoyed photography. I come from a family of photographers. My grandmother and my uncle were both photographers. My grandmother was a hobbyist and my uncle was a professional, and he actually shot several pictures of the space shuttle takeoffs and has an iconic photo of the space shuttle being hit by lightning, which is a really cool photo. So I began my landscape photography work in 2017 and kind of never looked back. Once I found landscape, I found what made me excited really to go out and shoot. And as much as I love my kids as well, but I never thought of myself as someone who was an outdoorsy person. No one would have described me that way. And then I started realizing that I loved being outdoors if I was shooting landscape photography, and it kind of took me outdoors. And I like to travel and capture really dramatic landscapes whenever I can. I not only travel, I've done several retreats. I've done 4 retreats, and they were all incredible experiences. And I will talk about kind of how they allowed me to get the shots that I want. But also during the pandemic, our family decided we couldn't sit in your house anymore, and we had to get out, and we bought an RV, not something we had ever considered doing. And it was really fantastic to be able to travel that way and to go to these national parks and to immerse yourself, and you're staying there. And it was just a really fun way. And again, I feel like if it wasn't for landscape photography, I probably wouldn't have experienced all the places and things and realized that, I do like camping. Now, my camping is not that primitive, but it's still camping. So some of what I'm going to talk about too is that, I love the dramatic shot, but sometimes it just doesn't pan out. I've listened to Scott Kelby speak before, and he said, it's a lot of it is luck. He goes, you could go there day after day, and you have to have that kind of patience and perseverance, and then some luck too, because Mother Nature just isn't always cooperating. And so when that doesn't happen, I tend to look around for macro wildlife. What else can I shoot? And I also like to shoot those things because I think it tells the full story. It gives me little smaller memories of the trip and the landscape and things that I loved in the area beyond the big mountain or the ocean or whatever else was there. So just a little bit about me. I am a hobbyist photographer. I have 2 teen boys and a rescue basset hound, and my husband and I have been married. I think it'll be 22 years this year. My background is I have my undergrad and law degree from Texas Tech University, and I was a trial attorney before I had kids. So I did not expect to be in photography this way, but it's been a wonderful transition. I've got down there. I've won several awards at the state fair. I've been featured in the Click community and in several publications. And those are always fun things to do. My bag, I didn't intend to be like a tech heavy presentation, but I know when I watch other people's presentations, I always want to know what they're shooting with, and those sorts of things. So I currently shoot my landscape with a D850. I am getting into mirrorless, but I have not transitioned that over to my landscape work because I have my setup so complete for that with the D850, and I'm happy with it. At some point, I might transition over, but I'm still using that. And the lenses that I picked that are there are the ones that are used probably for the majority of the pictures in this presentation are my landscape lenses, and I use my 105 for macro. I recommend having a good tripod. It took me a little bit of trial and error till I found one that I could set up quickly, and you want to be able to set that up when it's dark outside and you don't want to be fumbling with it, or you want it to go up or down easily if you want to change it. Some other things that are in my bag is I always have a couple remotes, and I have Velcro, and I tape it or Velcro it to my tripod so I don't have to get any movement, and I know where it is in the dark. And I always carry 2 because they're not super expensive and they do die. So it's always good to have a backup. I learned when I was shooting night photography that it is good to have a red light camera or not a camera, but a red light headlamp, because you do not want to be shining your flashlight in all the other photographers' faces. So I also have a pair of ice shoes because when I was in Banff, we had to use those, and I was very glad I had them. So it's always good to figure out what you need based on where you're going. I have a really good hiking backpack. I have a think tank bag. And I recommend going somewhere and having someone fit it on you. Make sure, like, I'm petite, and so not all bags fit me the same. And I was able to go to a local camera store here, and that was life-changing because I can carry that thing anywhere. So the first area when I thought about the presentation was to talk about the retreats that I've been in. I think they're a really valuable way to really explore a landscape and have probably the best chances of success of achieving the inspiring images that you see and want to achieve. I think the first step is to figure out, where you want to go, and look at pictures, subject matters that interest you, Instagram. That's kind of how I did it. And I was like, oh, that place looks pretty. I'd like to go there. And I'm lucky enough to have been on the retreats that I've been on, were all with people that had been instructors that I had online experiences with and had some knowledge with, because I think it's important to research who you're going with. I've been to the Tetons, Banff Glacier, and the Outer Banks on retreats. And I think you need to look at the photographer's work. What have they shot? And I recommend the ones that I've gone with people who know the area very, very well. And you want to have somebody who's going to say, I know where we need to be at this time, at this light to get it. And if they also know if that spot doesn't work, where to pivot to. And when you're out on your own and you don't really know an area, you kind of waste a lot of time wondering what to do next. And you might kind of bumble into the next spot, but maybe not. So I like to have somebody that knows. For instance, when we were shooting the Milky Way in the Tetons, she knew what time it was going to appear. She knew it was going to appear over that mountain over there. And that was just great. And I've had great experiences. And you also want somebody that knows the area, but that they're also going to be cognizant of your safety. When we went to Glacier, bears were a big concern, and we had to run bear spray at the airport. And we had the people running the retreat were very careful that we were always together, that we stayed together, and different things, and looking out. And some of those places, there are hazards, and you want to make sure someone knows them and they're going to look out for you. So I definitely have found the retreat experience to be very valuable to me, and I have gotten probably some of my best images. It's a little harder when I'm with my family and we're vacationing and I don't know the area as well. So that is my favorite way. So some of my images, the one from the last screen was also the Tetons, is the iconic Schwabacher's Landing. And we got to be there right at sunrise and shoot through sunrise. And that was a really incredible experience. There's some more pictures of the area, and it was just a beautiful scenery. And probably of the US national parks, the Tetons is probably one of my very favorites. This evening, the instructor knew that the moon was going to rise over this famous cabin. If you're familiar with the Tetons, you've seen this in a lot of places, and you can see that that cabin is being lit by the moon. Those shadows, the light, are all by the moon, and in the corner there happened to be a shooting star as well, which was an extra bonus. This was my first time shooting the Milky Way, and if you've never seen the Milky Way, it is one of the most incredible experiences that I've ever had, seeing something in nature like that. It was really unbelievable that it was actually real. This particular image is a composite. So before the sun went down, we shot the mountains and got that picture exposed. And then we shot the sky, and they're combined. So that is not one image. It's not really possible to easily take that with it being dark. And it was a lot of fun. We sat out there and waited for the Milky Way to rise. And I tend to go on all women retreats, and you can figure out if that's, something you want, or you want to go on a mixed retreat or whatever. But I've always had a lot of fun with the people that I've been with. And so this is also one of my favorite places. This was in Banff, and this is Castle Mountain. And the mountains there just felt bigger than any mountains that I had ever seen. And it was very cold there. We had all our cold weather rated gear. I actually wore that same gear in my house during the Texas freeze when we had no power. So I didn't expect to multi-purpose that, but I was able to. But I'm going to show this photo, and this is the wide angle version of this photo, and to show the difference between what you can get in the same scene. This picture is the same mountain from the same scene, but this was taken with my 70 to 200, and I stepped into that shallow water and zoomed in, and it was just the perfect moment where the light was hitting that mountain. Just gorgeous. You could see it just lighting up. And this photo, I was a runner-up out of 40,000 entries in the Click photography group, and it was a first place winner at the State Fair of Texas. Next, this was another one where we got up at sunrise, And I did a long exposure on this. The clouds were moving really fast, and just a really beautiful area. And this is part of what I love about the retreat, is that we were taken to so many different areas and got to experience them different times of day. This was it's an iconic spot. We also did some night photography here at a later point. And this one is such a beautiful scene, and it's so peaceful looking. But what you don't know is on the other side of this is the Fairmont in Banff. It's literally the hotel, and this is right behind it. And it was just kind of stunning to have the mountains and everything out there. One of the other retreats that I went on was Glacier, and this one kind of is a case in point for having other things to shoot or knowing what to do. This was the only beautiful light that we had on our entire glacier trip, because there was a forest fire and there was smoke nearby. And the smoke came in and it was hazy and nasty, and you can't ever predict that. So I'm grateful to have this particular image because it was beautiful. You've seen all the pictures of Glacier with the rainbows and all the beautiful things, and that wasn't what it panned out to. So for some other images, this was more of a fog, but there was smoke as well. And so I just looked for other things that I could shoot, and I'll show some of those later, but that was some of the landscape, and there was some light in this mountainside, and the path was kind of cool. And this is another, it's just kind of a dreary image, but I liked the picture, and there was some clouds in the sky there. So I would like another chance at Glacier, and I'm very happy to say that the only bear I saw in Glacier was when I was in a car. So I did not have to release my bear spray. The most recent retreat I went to was in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and I grew up in North Carolina, and so one of the places I had never been to was the beach. Of all the parts, so I'd spent a lot of time in the mountains there and other areas, and I had always wanted to see the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. So this retreat really appealed to me because I really have always wanted to see the scenery. And it's one of those things where, we got up, the instructor knew that this is a great spot, and we'd get out there before the sun would rise, and we'd wait and set up and, just watch everything unfold. And it was truly, truly beautiful. This is another image. I loved the textures of the sand and the colors of the water, and it just kind of all melded together. And then there was tons of birds everywhere, and the clouds were great, and we had so many great days on this one. Like there was one day it was a little rainy, but that was it. And if you haven't noticed, I love sun flares. So you'll often find sun flares in my image. I love them. So when I get the chance, I take them. And there was a lot of sun flares at the beach. And this was a great beach trip for me because I don't always get up at the crack of dawn when I'm at the beach with my family. And it's nice on a retreat because if you're at a vacation spot and your family is sleeping, you might not want to go out in the dark by yourself and stand out there. So when you have a group and you're able to go or be out there late at night, it feels more comfortable to be able to do those things for me. Another area I've been experimenting with is intentional camera movement, and it takes a little bit of practice, but it can be really fun. And it's another way to get some different images to vary what you get at a location. This next image, this is really funny. I was shooting the sunset, and I was waiting for sunset, and all of a sudden this guy on a hoverboard starts like going back and forth in the water, and I'd never even seen one of those before. And I was like, I'm gonna wait until he hits right under that sun. And so I didn't intend for there to be a people picture, but I actually really like it. It was really fun. But this was another, we took a lot of pictures by this Avon Pier, and it was just such a fabulous location. And there's just every time you turned around, it was kind of different each day. Even day to day, the pictures were so different, depending what the sky did and all of that. And so the next part is I'm going to talk about is our RV trips. This is my rescue Basset, who is as spoiled as they come, and she does not think she should be camping. And so she pouted through multiple states, but went with us because we were going. And she she was on her campsite and she was covered in blankets like a spoiled princess, and we get a lot of looks from people, but she was part of our trip. And so the upper right hand column was Broken Boat, Oklahoma, and the lower corner was us in Galveston. I honestly, for our camping, and especially during COVID, we haven't camped as much in Texas as other places because Texas was so hard to get a camping spot in. We could get in Oklahoma much easier than we could get in Texas for whatever reason. And the longest trip we took, we went from Texas to New Mexico, and we went to the White Sands National Park, and then we went to Saguaro, and then we went to the Grand Canyon and looped back around. And that was a long trip, especially in COVID time, because we had to bring all of our food and everything with us because we obviously didn't want to get out and go shopping and those sorts of things. So that was a lot to like plan and pack. But I like to cook, so I probably cook fancier camping food than most. But so this was from our campsite in Saguaro, and it was like a movie. This was literally behind our RV. Now we did have to go without water at this site, which was kind of a little bit of a challenge. Like I'm a camper, but I like the full amenities, but it was worth it for the few days to get this stunning scenery that was behind us, and to be able to just walk out there anytime, morning, evening, and be able to shoot was really, really cool just to be at the location. And I would love to go back there. It was really something to see. And we went in the winter time. And so when we stopped at the Grand Canyon, we weren't expecting snow and ice on the ground. Somehow we missed that forecast, and we couldn't even level our RV because of the ice, and they had to come use a blowtorch to undo the water because it was frozen shut. But we trekked the Grand Canyon. Now, I don't know that I'd necessarily go back at that time of year because the other side was already closed for winter. And also, it feels a little treacherous walking the paths of the Grand Canyon when it's icy because there's a lot of areas that don't have rails. But my family was huge troopers. They got up early with me. We walked out there so I could be there before sunrise and get set up. And there was quite a crowd there. And it was really funny because we could hear packs of coyotes howling as we were walking out there. But the sunrise was absolutely gorgeous. And this is another shot, the light dappling on there. I was probably also most amazed with, this is the White Sands Park, and my kids had an absolute ball there, sledding in it. But the scenery is just otherworld there, and there's nowhere that you can look that it's just not interesting, or the light's not doing something, or it's just, there was a guy, I didn't put it in the presentation, but there was a guy walking with camels out there, which like I really wasn't expecting that. I did take a picture that was unique. This picture, I was also a runner-up in the click photo for this one for light and shadows. And it just, the way it hit there that day was really stunning. And I'll have some more pictures to show you, the environmental side, what I got of my kids there. We went to Galveston a couple times as well. We really wanted to go to the beach. It's kind of a long trek for us, so I don't know how many times we'll do that again. But at the time, we were looking to get away, and the beach was really peaceful and pretty. And so I got up and shot whenever I could. And those are some more of those. Another place that we went to quite a bit was Hot Springs National Park. And that was a really pretty, and I woke up one morning and I had my camera, and I walked out there, and this fog was coming up off Lake Catherine. And I was like, okay, I want to photograph this. So, and I'd love to go back. We actually spent Thanksgiving during the pandemic there, and we did a whole Thanksgiving dinner at our campsite and everything. It was really fun memory for the kids. And you can see the fall foliage even in this one, but I would like to go back when it's like peak fall foliage, because I am a fall person, and I would love to see, oops, sorry, it just shot forward, more of it. these are just pictures just to show that, that you can get beautiful landscape anywhere. This is in one of my favorite places, Lake Murray, Oklahoma, that we found as a camping spot. And for us in Dallas, it's only like an hour and a half away. And they have big, beautiful campsites, and it gives us the opportunity to be right on the lake and to shoot and be there. We also went to Estes Park, Colorado in the summer, and I decided I would like to live there in the summer because that is how summer should feel. But the color, I mean, this was summer and that color was just stunning, that yellow on the mountains and everything. And it's really neat because it's a nice loop that you can just drive and stop, and there's so much to see there. It happened to be there was like a storm coming in one day, and I could not stop shooting fast enough with the clouds and the shadows and everything. I mean, it was a really crazy storm, and it came up really fast and it left really fast. And so with the RV, we try to go out. We don't tend to take as big of trips in it as we did in the pandemic because with the kids back in school, activities and stuff, but also we find that to go to places that are going to be much further, we prefer flying these days. So, but the RV has been like a really great way for us to get out in nature, to immerse yourself in it, to stay in it. And this is another picture. This was on a hike we took, and I stopped and did a long exposure on a creek that was running through there. And the next part I want to talk about is environmental portraits. And these are really special to me because I love landscape. And if I can put my kids in the landscape, then it makes it even more special. It adds that layer of emotion that you might not have in just a regular landscape. And it allows me multiple ways of shooting them. Sometimes your kids don't want you posing them and they want to do their own things. And if you put them out somewhere interesting, they're going to do something interesting. And you can just kind of stand back, watch them, and photograph them without really having to interfere. And they're pretty good sports anyway, but I love to be able to, especially when they were a little bit younger, is to show the vastness of the space compared to their size. And these are some of my favorite images. They also are, luckily, they're good sports, and they will allow me to come up with an idea, and they will help me and get engaged in it. So some of these will be like this one. He was just walking and I photographed him, and there's my sun flare and the little red sleds, the perfect little touch, and his hair is kind of glowing. And so I love to be able to do those kind of images, but I also like to sometimes have a vision. The environmental portraits too is, even if I'm doing landscape, if I'm traveling with my family, I'm going to be taking pictures of my kids. And so, midday sun can be very harsh, and this was a way to address that harsh midday sun, especially in a desert like location, is to put them out and make them smaller and not have them facing portrait style toward the camera. So that can be fun if you don't have kids, if you have pets, husbands, whatever, you can pose them equally. This was just my kids. This is just a scope of how high the sand mounds there, and they were up on it, and I believe they were going to sled down the other side. And this was like middle of the day, and you can see that the sun was really bright. And if I can get the two of them together, that's a bonus. This is my younger son. And like I said, for me, a lot of these environmental portraits are about scale and color and incorporating all those things to capture our memory, but in a way that I want to photograph and hang on my wall, and more special than just pose here and say hi for the camera. This one was just happenstance. He was going up the hill, and the flare that came out of my camera just added that perfect little note to this picture to kind of mimic the sled. And I love his movement in it. and the going up those hills. And like I said, the scenery here was just really, really stunning. I would hope to go back, although I didn't know there were like snakes all around this place when I went there, and that was probably better off for me not to have known that at the time. This was one of the places that we RV'd to, and we weren't able to camp there. I can't remember. It may be that they don't have full hookups there, or they didn't have many spots. It was one of the others. And if you do go to this site, you always, before you plan a trip there, you should check, because they actually do missile testing out there, and it will close for that. And luckily that didn't happen to us, but as we were leaving, they were going to be doing one. And I thought, oh man, if you didn't know that, you might show up and that was going to be your only day there. So that's another. And I know that they do things at this park. They have like photography events and night photography events and different things that they do. This is another picture. This is a picture of my son in Galveston. He was running after the birds, and when he did it, I was like, I knew that's what I wanted to get, and we had a pretty good sky. And I like that the birds are parallel to him, and I kind of shot it so that he would have that motion and energy from both of them. And I love that you really can't tell the sand from the sky with the reflection. And again, I didn't have to ask him to do much, but just take off running, and he was up for that for sure. This picture was a planned picture. This picture I won Best of Show at the state fair, and this was actually taken in my neighborhood. And I knew I wanted him running with the flag, and I waited till I knew the light was going to be right outside. And actually, where I'm shooting, if you saw it in real life, there are houses. There's actually a lake on the other side of that. And I didn't want any of that in my picture. It's actually a very busy scene on the other side. So the hill is not really as tall as it looks, but I got down as low as I could till I minimized so those things weren't in my picture. And then he was at the top. And the bonus was getting those clouds that kind of run alongside him. I couldn't have asked for better for my picture if I had tried. So this picture is really special to me. And this is more of an example of one where I went out with an intent and created my own environmental portrait in an area that really wasn't that fantastic of a location otherwise. I also love doing family portraits, but I don't love where you try to get everybody to look and nobody smiles. And when we were walking through Estes Park, I saw the reflections in these rocks or whatever they were that came out. And I was like, I want a picture of them there, and I want that reflection. So had them go out there, and I didn't know my younger son was going to ham it up in the middle of the picture, but it added the little flair that the picture needed. And that's just perfectly him. So those are special because I love having those on my wall, and it's a little bit better than just everybody staring at the camera kind of photo. This next one was kind of on the spot creation. We were staying in the Badlands, and the person that owned the property was also on the property, and she came out and said, I've got a tent if the kids want to play in the tent. And when she gave us the tent, I was like, we have to light the tent up and make shadows in the tent. Like, what else are we going to do? Because I knew they weren't going to sleep out there. But so they got out there and they did their best performance. My younger son had his Curious George, and he's part of the show there. I will say that for my photos, I am not hesitant or afraid to edit them to my vision. So in this particular one, I did add the starry sky, and the sky that's there, that was a Photoshop edition because I just wanted to give the sky a little more. And I will do that in images. I have a couple where I'll show where it's kind of where you don't get the vision complete where you wanted to. And so I will fill that in with editing here and there. Most of my stuff is natural. This next one is one of those images. We were in New York, and we were there right before that smoke came in. We didn't know it was coming, and we were gone before it came, thank goodness. But the days before, the sky was awfully ugly. I was like, I'm not going to get any landscape here because It was just so hazy. And so the original picture, the sky was kind of lackluster. So I added some color and I added more of a sky look to it to give it a little dimension. I actually have this in a black and white hanging on my wall, but I really do love the color. I love the pop of red. This was, I believe I believe this was the Empire State Building. I think that's where we were. And he popped up in that window, and it's one of my very favorite pictures. Um, and I love that his bag pops with a little bit of green there. But like I said, I gave it just a little more definition. This is another one in the Badlands of my son, and the sun flare was kind of crazy that day. Um, this was another planned creation. My son laughs because he doesn't play the guitar. And I was like, take that guitar outside. And we have a willow tree in our backyard, and I placed him under the tree with the dappled light. And I'm a fan of also learning to make your scenery when you don't have it. Something when I first started learning landscape photography, and I was in a class of online people, and I'm here in the Dallas area. People in my class were in Scotland and had fantastic castles and crazy things. And I feel like almost everybody in the class had some kind of like amazing landscape. Well, I have Dallas. So I went out and I practiced on those ugly brown lakes, and I shot what I could find, and I tried to make it pretty when I could. But I think it's important too, if you're going to do landscape photography, is to practice the skills even before you have the landscape. If you don't live somewhere that you can practice them, I had a neighborhood that had a little waterfall, and I used that to practice my long exposures. And um, so because you want to know how to do it before you get it in front of you, you don't want that to be the time. So if you're going to want to practice long exposures or practice what landscape compositions and different landscape night photography. So that was a fun exercise for me, and I'm sure everyone enjoyed seeing my White Rock Lake pictures and what I could find. This was a picture of my son in Broken Bow, and there was gorgeous light coming through the trees. This is another one. This was Galveston, and again, this was kind of a midday sun, and I got several of him dancing and doing other fun things in the water. And the color, I love the contrast of the color where he really pops out. He just happened to be wearing something really colorful in the water. And so I think, I know, not everybody in the group has kids or has the ability, but you can take these things and use them for shooting. Or even if you just see like the guy that came in my picture in the hoverboard, sometimes people pop in your picture and you can use them in creative ways. And hopefully they either don't notice or won't mind. But I don't do a whole ton of street photography, but every now and then I will, because I know it can sometimes be intimidating to take pictures of people that you don't know and hope that they won't mind. And then this was another one from the Badlands. He had to have his little ranger hat while we were there. And that was another place that the scenery was really, really stunning. And I love to show how small he was there again. And my family was such good sports for me. I didn't end up including it, I don't think, in this presentation, but they got up at 2 a.m. in the morning so that we could be in the Badlands at sunrise, because we were supposed to be staying in the Badlands, and our reservation got canceled at the last minute for the place because they had some kind of damage and we couldn't find something else. So it worked out well because we ended up staying on this fabulous farm, and it was amazing. But we didn't end up being out there, and it ended up being incredible skies. So my family is very good sports when we're on these trips, and I really appreciate that part. My last part of my presentation is on the details within the landscape. And like I said, I've talked about being in Montana, and the haze came over. So if I'm going to make something out of the trip, I'm going to have to find something else to photograph. So I like having things like macro and wildlife and just different interests. And like I said, I think that those things are a part of the landscape too. And I think they're just kind of, I think of them as like mini landscapes. one of my favorite things to do is to find hearts in nature. And so I'm always looking for different hearts to shoot. And this I actually found in the Outer Banks. We went to, on the retreat I was on, we went to an Elizabethan garden, and I just happened to see that hanging there, and I was like, there it is, there's my heart. And so doing these things and looking for other things within my landscape really helps me to create a full scene, or it can not to be as disappointed when something doesn't work out, because there's always something else I can find to shoot. And when we're camping, I will get up and I will just go around the campsite and I will look for little things. I like finding little contrasts in nature or textures or just something interesting. And it's amazing to me that if you really just take some time to just like look and be still, you'll often see things and you're like, wow, that's really cool. And that was just sitting right there. So that's what I like to do. This was one of my glacier pictures. I got some light in this one. I found the spider web over, and it's a fun one that I've posted for Halloween. It seemed to fit the bill. There was no spider in it, but I was kind of okay with that. But again, it did give me something to look for. These, I can't, this was in one of our spots that we go to in Oklahoma, and I'm a fall person. So anytime I can find like a cozy image or a fall image, and like I said, I like contrast in details, the pop of color against the dreary background. And I just love to go poking around and looking for those kind of things. Again, this was a macro. I think this may have been in Colorado. There were a lot of flowers there, and macro does take a lot of time. And as you get a little older, your eyes, it's a little bit harder to get that. I'm learning to find new ways to do that, because it's a little harder to get that close-up view to make sure that you're getting it right. And this I use my 105 for, and I usually take multiples to make sure that I get one in good focus, but I love the 105 for the dreaminess and just the details that you can get shooting macro. And as far as my training, I've taken a lot of classes on all these things, so that's how I've learned, and then a lot of it is practice as well. I also I find that I like bugs if I can shoot them as macro subjects. I don't really like them a whole lot of other times, but when you realize what a cool subject a bug can be as far as a macro subject, it really is interesting. And it really is interesting to look at those pictures up close and see all the details. And when you look at it on the ground, it just doesn't look the same. Sometimes I think I remarked to somebody the other day that their bug was cute, and I was like, I probably would not say that if he was crawling through my house. So this one was next to our RV site in Estes Park, and there were these bees, and I sat out there and I practiced and practiced, and I took so many pictures, and I was like, I'm gonna get the tack sharp shot. And I love these. I don't know what these particular flowers are, but they were absolutely beautiful. And bees can be really challenging because they move and move and move, and so to get them at a high rate of speed and show the motion is sometimes challenging, but it can be fun. And also be careful not to get stung doing that. Luckily, that has not happened to me, but this is another detail in the landscape. The light had fallen in Estes Park. There really wasn't much more to shoot, and it was kind of getting end of day. And I saw this duck with his trail and his clouds, and I thought he just looked dreamy. And so I have a thing for ducks, so I will shoot them. And this was, I started knowing more about birds during the pandemic, because that's when I started learning wildlife photography. I took a class online, and that would kind of be my reprieve. I would walk around outside with my lens and look for things to shoot. And I found all these birds, and before you know it, I have a bird app, and I'm like figuring out, and I identified like several really cool birds in my neighborhood that I don't think I had ever noticed. One of them was a scissor tail flycatcher, I think what it was called. And it was absolutely fabulous, an interesting bird. So this is, like I said, I don't know what he is, but I love using the flowers to frame him. And he tells some story of the landscape and where I was. This one was when my eyes were a little bit younger, but this is kind of showing what macro can be and like how you can get, I mean, you just don't really see their eyes that way. And even the details on their legs, you can even see some of the pollen on him. I think this was in a sunflower. And so like I said, I'm allergic to bees. So I probably am not the one that should be shooting them, but sometimes I just can't resist. So that was a fun one to capture. This was kind of another one to show, like when I went on the retreat, not every retreat location is necessarily going to be a landscape per se, just depending where the instructor wants to take you. And on this particular day, the sun had risen. It was a pretty bright sun. There wasn't much we could do at the beach and the Outer Banks, but the heart picture I showed a little while ago is from the same location. There is an Elizabethan garden there. And it is absolutely amazing. They have a statue of Queen Elizabeth in the middle of the garden. And then they have all these flowers and butterfly gardens planted. And there's a huge greenhouse where they're growing stuff in the back, and then just lots of forest. It was truly a gorgeous thing. And this reminds me of the trip as much as the beach pictures and landscape pictures. And this is the value of having an instructor. You don't have to go sit around all day because they know there's this other place, and this makes a great thing to do in practice. I was shooting these butterflies and they were so beautiful, and then it was brought to my attention that it was something about like bees in the area or something, and that maybe I shouldn't be there shooting. So I got my pictures and kind of got out of that area. But you want to go with an instructor who can make sure that your trip is full of lots of different images and it's fun to get different things. This is another one, details in landscape. The sun was up at the beach. We were done and I turned around, and this is part of the pier. Is this cute little building and all these little birds on top. And I just loved the colors, and I loved the more up close of the birds, because those birds move all the time back and forth. And so it's another way that reminds me of the trip, but it was also something I could shoot when the ocean wasn't really going to be much to shoot anymore because the sun was already up and over. This next one was one of my finds in landscape. It's almost like the little leaves were hung there just to be perfect, and the coloring in the fall. And I was just poking around and saw it. And this was on one of our campsites. And it always reminds me of the campfires and the fall weather. And I am a fall camper. I'm not a summer camper. You will not find me in an RV unless I'm going to Colorado or somewhere else, because that is just too hot, and you cannot bring the temperature more than 20 degrees below the outside temperature. So summer, I'm envious of people in the north who camping season starts for them in the summer, because that's where it ends for me. Plus, once there are snakes and other things out, I'm kind of out on that. But so most of my camping images are going to be fall or winter, because we are lucky that we can mostly camp in Texas in the winter, although we've had a couple trips get canceled due to ice. This is another example of just using wildlife in the area to create some images. Like I said, I probably knew what he was at one point. I don't know now, but he was cute and I enjoyed photographing him. This was another macro subject. I love finding things. I have no idea what this is, but the color that its background was, the way it was almost like dancing and the little leaves wrapping around, was really such a stunning capture. And I will, like I said, when I'm doing macro, I will take a lot of time to get up close, do different angles. Like I like macro because I think it can be very relaxing and calming. If I don't know what to shoot on a day, I'll go out and shoot macro, because you can almost always find something. And bugs may be a little different if they're moving, but a lot of other things, flowers, you can just really just sit there and play with it and work with it. And it's not going anywhere. It's not going to complain. And the only problem you'll have is if it's windy. Macro does not work in the wind, and that can be a problem in Texas a lot, because I find half the time I go outside, the wind is blowing. But if you can catch it on a calm day, then it tends to work pretty well. I believe this was in the park in Estes, Colorado. And again, it's just reflective of my work, and what I like is a pop of color or one solitary subject that's kind of stands out from its background. And those are what call to me, and those are what I come in to look for. And having these things to shoot, if it's the end of the day and there's still a little bit of light left, but not enough maybe to shoot the landscape, or whatever, it's fun to just be able to still have subjects. This one was in Oklahoma, and I love the texture on this one, and I love the light and the colors, and it just feels like it was artfully arranged, and that was Mother Nature's doing, not mine. But I enjoy. I like colorful leaves because we don't get that many around here. It's still not fall here yet. It's maybe fake fall, who knows? But we won't see any kind of real color change till probably Thanksgiving, at least in my part of Texas. I don't know about further south where a lot of you are from, but we won't see that. So when I go somewhere and I see leaves, I like to pretend I'm in New England and that there's pretty fall color where I can find it. This image was also on another one of our camping trips, and I really just love it. To me, it's just simple. I saw it and something about it called to me to just this one little dead leaf in the middle. And again, I enjoy finding those things, and I feel like it gives me greater depth in my portfolio to have not just landscapes, but have kids, have small details, have wildlife, have the different things. I haven't had as much luck finding really I haven't got I took a class with someone that had fox coming through their front yard. I would love a photo of a fox, but I have not had the opportunity to get a fox. I don't think I would probably ever get a photo of a bear unless I was really, really far away. But I haven't yet. I have the lens, and I've done a lot of birds, and I found a lot of interesting things in my area, but I have not yet gotten what I would think of as bigger wildlife. So I'm still working on that one, but this beautiful blue jay was outside, and this was I'm pretty sure that I used my 70 to 200 on that, and that lens is really a workhorse for me. I shoot a lot of the bird photography. I love it. Like I said, one of my best pictures that I've ever taken in Banff was shot with that. I don't think a lot of people always think of the 70 to 200 as a landscape lens, but it really does. I mean, it wasn't really the first reason I bought it, but I was really going to do more portrait work with it, and it is beautiful for that. So for me, it's full service. I do theater photography also, and so I use it a lot for that, but I also always take it on retreats and always take it where I'm going. The downside of the wildlife lens is really, really heavy. And so I tend to not take that when I'm hiking, unless I know for sure, I'm probably really going to see something. Otherwise, I tend to like that one in scenarios where we're in the car and I can keep it in the car with me, because that one is a really heavy lens. So I had even looked at the one for the mirrorless camera is not much less in weight than the regular one. So I was like, that really isn't going to do me a whole lot of good. This is one of my little beach birds. I love these little guys. These guys move fast, and I don't think I had my 70 to 200 when I took this one. So I was really happy to get one because you can't really get that close to them. But they were busy all along the shore that morning, and I've always loved going down the beach in the morning. You can always find some kind of birds early in the morning. Sometimes it's egrets. We used to go to Alabama, and we used to be able to photograph them really early. And it's such a peaceful experience watching them and photographing them. I think just watching nature, and I think, from taking wildlife classes and everything, you really want to be respectful of whatever you're shooting and not get in its space. And, not, I didn't know when I went to the Badlands the first time many, many years ago, I got too close to a bison, and thankfully nothing happened, but I had no idea. And now you see what's happening to people. And so I think that's another, whether it's a bird or whatever you're shooting, I always try to give it its distance, let it have its doing its thing. And I just want to observe. I don't want to interrupt or anything like that. This one is one of my examples of the rare street photography that I do. I guess you call it street. The this was at the Outer Banks, and I turned around looking for something to shoot, and this lady was so perfect with her coffee in the window and her cute little hat. And so I just couldn't resist photographing her. I think several other from the group got her as well. So I don't think she knows that she kind of became a famous subject for the rest of us that were there, who thought she was like about as perfectly placed and cute as she could be in the window there. This one was at the we were waiting, the sun was still pretty high and it was getting into golden hour, and we were waiting to shoot at the same beach. It was, I believe it was the same beach where the guy came through the picture, and the golden light hitting these, I don't know what these little flowers were, but it was so pretty and whimsical to me that I just really loved it. This last one's another one. It's just a little detail of these little piers and the beach grasses and some of the colors, and all of these things really just remind me of the trip. And, you know, you learn as a landscape photographer that not every time you go out are you gonna get the sky, are you gonna get the thing, and that's just part of it. It's kind of, when you do, it's amazing and it's exciting and you can't stop shooting. And I have catalogs full of images that I still need to edit, and someday I will get through them all, I hope. But like I said, I think it's all, for me, it's all also part of telling the story. Like, I want to tell the story of what my children did in the landscape, or I want to tell the story of the places that I visit. Um, so that's kind of how I shoot, what I do, what I enjoy doing. And I do travel with my family as well, but I find those trips are the hardest ones to shoot on, especially when we're going somewhere that we don't know, and I don't know how to always plan it to be there. Do I want to get everyone up at 3 o'clock in the morning? So like I said, there's lots of other ways that are fun to shoot that allow me those opportunities. And I think that,
Do you think that's it?
I think that's it. So you want me to find something else for me to talk about?
Oh, the wheels are spinning. All right, let me get you to take down your screen. If anybody has any questions for Brandie, stick those in the chat real quick. But I'm going to take the opportunity to say, wow, I love your landscape work. And I already know what I'm going to ask you to speak on next.
Oh no.
The wheels
Give me a
turn.
little time. Give me a little
I'm,
time.
I'm going to give you a little bit of time to work on collecting and making some more photographs to fill in the topic. But oh my goodness. First of all, let me just tell you, your family, your sons are, that little one is your little muse, whether he
Oh yeah.
realizes it or not. He's a good sport. They were all good sport. You know, when you said that they all got up at 2 a.m., or it was 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. to follow you into getting set up, I was like,
And we drove through the most horrific lightning storm we've ever seen on top of it. So yeah,
no,
husband was a good sport too.
I was gonna say, a lot of people, I don't say this often, a lot of people love me. They do. I have a really good family, I have really good friends, and I can tell you none of them would be doing that for me or with me. Now, that's where my photography friends come into play, and say they fill those gaps. And my family and my friends are like, you go play with those photographers, and they'll show up for queso. So kudos to your family. That's really cool. The photograph of the, did you say he was on a hoverboard? I
Yeah.
hope you chased him down and said, dude, I've got this, give me your email, and send it to him.
I should have.
Yeah,
I didn't
because
get
he
up
would have
doing.
loved to have that shot. That would have been so cool. I've had a couple of opportunities where I've taken photographs of people that I thought was kind of cool, and they didn't know I took it. And I'm like, oh, do I go over there or not? And of course, you know, me being me, I'm going to go up and say, hey, I know this is crazy, but I really think you want this. And every time they're like, oh my God, that's, you know, they're,
I've done that a few times. I was at a conference and we happened to be at a mission in San Antonio, and there was a wedding happening. We were way far back, but we were all shooting, and I got this really cool picture of the bride and her dad. So I contacted the church and got in touch and got her the picture, and that was a really cool experience.
and those are just those extra bonuses for those people. You
Yeah.
know, caught them doing something they love and they're not thinking anything about it. They're just in it for the joy of whatever they're doing. And then, a random photographer that they don't know, they didn't hire, has, photographed an amazing moment for them. So go up to strangers, make friends. I love that. Brandie, this was great. And
Thank you.
I know that you were like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just a wonderful contribution to these presentations that we do. And so I want to thank you so much for not putting up a fight and just saying, yeah, I'll do it. And here we are. So you've got is this your first photography presentation down?
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, it will not be your last if I have anything to do with it. And I promise you, it you will be doing others. So thank you for doing this. Let me see if anybody has any questions. Oh yeah. So Debbie, that's real sweet. She says, kudos to Brandie's family. She's taken a few trips to Galveston to capture that sunrise by herself. And her husband and her pets are still asleep when she leaves. But you know what? Keep going out there, Debbie. And yeah, this is wonderful. All right, let me go ahead and close out this session. You guys can, like I said, you can reach out to Brandie. I will put her contact or her Instagram in the show notes, and you can find the schedule for our upcoming meetings on my website at lindanickell.com. And until next time, I hope that you get a chance to get your camera out and play a little bit. So